Hello, everyone. Hello, Jeff.
Hi.
Hello. I can see we have already a lot of people connected. We'll just give people 2 minutes to get in. There should be a reminder going out now. So we'll start in 2 minutes, 1.5 minutes, then we'll be ready. Look forward to it. We have a lot of great gold nuggets today, and Jeff here, who's creative director at Eskimi, has a lot of cool new things and innovations ready to share. Some things about the attention economy and how that pertains to ads and how we can help advertisers and brands with these high impact formats. So looking forward to that. It's going to be about 35 to 40 minutes of presentations, and we will be following up with questions and Q&A afterwards. So remember to put in a lot of questions down the questions in the chat, and we'll follow up at the end to ensure that hopefully we can get everyone to know a little bit more and get the questions answered if there's anything. So perfect. I think 10 more seconds, then we will be ready.
10 more seconds, yeah.
10 more seconds, like just teasing it a little bit. Yes, I can see it's growing. People are joining. Good. Let's kick this off. Perfect. Can you share the slides, Jeff?
Yeah, 1 second.
Perfect.
Yeah, we should be able to see the slides. All good?
Boom. All good. If you can minimize where we are, 37 slides, that's easy. Perfect.
Yeah, apologies.
There we go. Super. So yes, welcome to this webinar about high impact ads and the formats that are winning consumer attention here in 2023. We have a lot of great new examples of results and the formats themselves and what it is, etc. So let's dig in. I'll do a quick introduction to who we are very quickly. It's not a pitch. So I just want to show everyone who doesn't know us. We have a lot of customers joining, of course, but we also have a lot of new people. So Eskimi is a full stack ad tech platform. So we're at what you would say a DSP, as well as many other things in this world. And we pride ourselves on having a large reach with a lot of ad exchanges, and we have a lot of great creative solutions with Jeff's team and overall our tool as well. A lot of premium placements, contextual targeting. We do telco data targeting and have a lot of interest categories and geo and hyperlocal targeting. And of course, we're a global company. So very standard as what you would say, but we have a lot of great stuff here. So global presence. So we have about 12 offices around the world, 200 people sitting a lot remotely. I'm sitting here as the only person sitting in Denmark. So traveling a lot, that's fun. But we have people in most of the countries around the world that we service. So have a global ad operations team, creative studio solutions, and of course, ad ops and support go together, right? So we are very proud of our G2 ratings, and we have a lot of great happy customers that help us get there. And of course, making sure that we respond quicker than the rest is very important for us. So customer service, creative solutions, and of course, a full stack ad tech platform. That's what we do. So now you know what we do. I'm the CMO in Philips. I'm in charge of marketing. And Jeff, maybe a quick introduction to yourself.
Yeah, hi guys. So I'm the creative director in Eskimi DSP. So my job is the rich media part of the business and all of the creative part of the business. I manage creative studio in Eskimi. So yeah, I think you learn quite a bit about the rich media, right? New high impact ads, and yeah, our creative studio in general.
Yes, perfect. So maybe let's get started on a preamble to what this is all about, right? So the next step is to talk about the attention economy. So that is a little bit of a preamble. We'll get into this quickly. So we just want to get everyone on the same page as to why we do this and what are some of the changes happening in the market, why we need to be more aware as brands and as an agencies on this attention play. So what is the attention economy? If you go to the next page, we can see what it is. And the definition is, of course, if you go to the next page, Jeff, you can see very high level that it's, the definition is it's an economic system in which the sellers of goods and services must compete to capture the attention of potential consumers, right? So very high-end approach to that. So what does that actually mean for us as agencies, as brands, right? So it's a problem for a lot of us if we want to get in front of people, because us humans have limited cognitive resources, and those are limited to how much we can use in a time. So attention and creative approaches, they're more important than ever. So there are some really cool cases out there that signify this. So what that means is consumers, they're drowning in ads. So some latest research say that consumers are exposed to between 6,000 to 10,000 ads a day. So that number is, of course, astronomical. We can't even think about that, comprehend that. But of course, this is across offline, online, mobile, phone, desktop, all across, right? So lots of different areas where we're exposed to these things. And that means that to stick out, to have an impact, you have to get attention from your ads, right? So we can't just be one in the sea of thousands of ads, right? So if you go to the next one, let's see. So some of what we want to talk about is that we want to, of course, we want to prove this is actually something that works, right? So we have some items here. So maybe Jeff, you can give a little bit of insights about what is attention and how it's measured right here.
Yeah. So we have this amazing funnel, right? I met a lot of agencies that we buy the impressions. We don't really care, who sees that. We just need the impressions, right? So I think this is a really, really bad thing to do in marketing in general, especially in this age, right? Because we can gather loads and loads of data in general, right? And yeah, so you can see here the overall funnel, right? So let's say we have 100% of all impressions served to a device, 70% of that could be seen, meaning viewable, right? So Eskimi does track that. Percent viewed, right? So from the 70, we have the 35 impression actually seen, right? So what does it mean? Like the ad was viewable, right? So it was somewhere on the screen, but in the device, the user maybe did not scroll and things like that, right? Yeah. And then the average view time, right? So imagine from those 100% impressions, 35 were seen, and then 35 were received this additional metric on top is average view time, right? Yeah, and attentive seconds, right, per 1,000 impressions, right? So percentage viewed in general, right? So average time viewed multiplied by 1,000.
Yeah. So what does attention actually mean for results, right? So maybe we can see some examples of some research being done on this, because this is not a new thing, right? Attention is of course something that's been on everyone's mind since the 70s, and especially since the 2000s, we've become a lot more smarter and have much more research methods to measure these things, right? So maybe if we can go to the next slide, we can see some of this research being done at a high level from big publications, right? So scientific publications, right? So these are some since 2002, right? That this is actually something that moves the needle when it comes to brands, brand equity, brand play, of course, all of these things that will lead to sales, of course, right? So memory attention. So we can take also some newer examples from some of the smart people in the industry. Let's see, the next slide is, there are a lot of great ways. This is a recent study by Mail Metro Media, right? So attention actually correlates and turns into brand consideration and intent, right? So doing a lot of benchmarking, it's very important, of course, for advertisers to also know and prove this to their customers, right? So a lot of these attention plays turn into consideration intent. It's not just to be flashy, it's not just to have another metric. There is direct correlation between results and this. So if you go to the next one, we can also see from Double Verify that there's a lot of correlation between this and brand equity. So Mondelez, one of the largest FMCG brands in the world, right? They are also, of course, very much interested in testing this across a variety of brands globally, right? So a lot of moving the needle in brand favorability and brand consideration, right? So very important place for brand equities as well. And if we go to the next one, I think people will also know this company Dentsu, right? So time in view, viewability, and all of these metrics, of course, impact attention and sale uplift. So there's direct correlations between a lot of these attention economy studies, and viewability is a big one of these. We'll come into a little bit later on viewability and what that means for high impact ads. So yeah. And of course, the last thing, this is the last one, high view time, high brand recall, right? So the longer time your ads are seen, the higher the brand recall. Like it doesn't take a brand survey to maybe verify this, but it makes sense. But it's very important that we get these measurements right. So this is something you can show to your customers, to your bosses, to your brands, to advertisers, that this is something that correlates highly with brand recall. So yes, that was a preamble to high impact ads, right? And you might guess that high impact ads, they give a lot of attention, right? So that is why we're here. That's why it took a little 4 minutes just to get a little bit of insights into what is the value of attention, right? So maybe Jeff, you can take a definition of high impact ads, and there might also be some sneak previews in here.
Yeah, of course. So high impact, I think it's in the name. That's why I love this name quite a bit, actually, right? So meaning it's a high impact, right? So high impact, it's compared to the regular ads, right? Something, let's say, different, something that sticks to the consumer, right? That's something that brand will, showcase themselves in different light, right? So meaning, not only, let's say, the overall format, right? But also the attention it receives, the viewability it receives, like that's what's a high impact about it, right? So
yeah. So the definition is, of course, for some who don't know, it's their premium and their non-standard formats, right? So we all know the standard formats, 300 times 250. These are formats that stand out highly, and of course they're much more premium, both in terms of costs but also in terms of placement, right? So the definition of it is of course that they're designed to attract attention and produce this better performance, which we'll come into a little bit later with some concrete examples and also some comparisons. But yeah, some examples here we have prepared, some from our creative studio team. So maybe we can see some really good examples and also some definitions. Jeff, maybe you can lead that.
Yeah, of course. So I think maybe let's not go one each of these. Maybe let's go one by one. Yeah. So the first one is the floating ad. Yeah. So in this case, the floating ad is something a little bit, let's say, the simplest version. I'd like to call that, right? So the idea here is that the floating ad integrates into the page, right? So it's on top of all of the content, right? It does not really ruin customer experience that much, right? So basically it just stays on the page. Yeah? So that's the general idea of the floating ad. You can see a couple of examples. Some of them are from Eskimi, right? So we have Kia, we have Coke, right? Let's see those movable buttons, right? In this case. Yeah. Second, yeah. So here you can preview them live, right? I hope everyone can see the screen, right? So in this case, we have Coke. So basically you have like this little can, right? So if the user will scroll the page, it will always stay on top of the screen, right? And basically the idea here is that we request the consumer to shake the can, right? And then the bubbles appear, right? So quite simple in general, right? And then the Kia ad, which I showed previously, right? So this is how it looks. Yeah? So this is a new Kia Ceed model. It rises into the screen, right? It changes the colors, and you can basically move it around. You click X, and it disappears. Yeah, so quite cool and simple. Yeah. So moving forward with a full page takeover ad. So in this case, compared to the floating ad, let's say, this would be something a little bit more intrusive, right? More capturing the user's attention in general. right? If the floating ad is somewhere at the bottom, it does not take the whole screen. The takeover ad in this case covers the whole content, right? So it's a little bit more intrusive. So as like this, I'd say you need very strong proposition for the consumer, right? Because it's a little bit more intrusive in this case, right? So this is the one we have run for Disney Plus. Yeah. So we have like the little curtain popping up, right? And then we have all of the movies which are being launched right now and the user can view. Yeah. So whenever user clicks any of these, he can.
That's a really cool use of rich media and dynamic video. It's really cool.
Yeah. So these are full page takeovers, right? And in this case, whenever the user clicks anything, we can automatically take over the sound function of the device, right? It doesn't matter if it's a mobile phone, if it's a desktop computer. He clicks, we automatically take over the sound settings, and basically he can view the videos in full sound in this case. Yeah. So this is full page takeover. Yeah, and then we have a combination of both, right? So whenever planning the media, it's sometimes a little bit too scary to jump into the takeover, right? Because maybe you don't want to showcase the intrusiveness of the brand to the user in general, right? So here we have like this little combination. So we only take over the screen whenever user interacts with the ad, right? So you can see two examples. So maybe let's jump in and let me show them live, right? So first one is Guardians of the Galaxy, right? So you have this little ship flying into the page. So it's quite nice. You click enter the cockpit, right? And then you have this cool immersive experience with the movie, right? So this is Guardians of the Galaxy. So, it's gamified version of the takeover, right? So we take over the user screen, user holds to start the engine, some engagement in this case, and then we have like the rest of the banner we have to shoot and basically reviewing the trailer. Yeah, so quite simple, and it's not. Imagine if the experience would be like instantly this, right? The ship appearing out of nowhere. Yeah. And the second one is Phantom. So in this case, it's a floating button on the bottom, right? User can either click X or drag up as the banner requests. You drag it up, and you receive like this nice, fresh takeover unit, with Fanta on top and their new campaign Snack Now. Yeah. So oops, apologies. Yeah.
And remember, guys, everyone to write in questions. We'll be answering them at the end of this, right? So if there's any question, technical specifics, cost, anything, just put them in. We'll do our best to answer all of them at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's it about this combination. Yeah, and now moving into a little bit more, let's say, newer formats, right? So we spoke about like floating ad plus takeover is not that intrusive, right? It's a little bit less intrusive. So in this case, what I like about these, let's say, top scroll and all of the scroll solutions in general, it blends into the content. So like whenever you load the page, all of the content of the page goes to the bottom, and on top you have like this cool execution, right? So in this case, it's Oppenheimer, right? So imagine the content of the website would be in the bottom, so the ad pushes it down, right? And you have Oppenheimer with the countdown, add to calendar, or maybe watch trailer, right? And whenever you scroll, the page slowly appears, right? So you can scroll up and down, and the page will be responsive to the ad. Right, and if you want the full page experience as a user, right, you just scroll it down and you have the page unlocked completely, right? So I wouldn't call this, let's say, the as intrusive as full page takeover when you just blow it up, and you have the ads on top of the page. And this is a little bit lighter version of that, right? And let's say doesn't have the same bad user experience as the, oh my God. Yeah,
no, and the positive thing about one of these formats, top scroll, is that we've just seen it from a performance perspective that they demand a high CTR, very high attention reviewability, a lot of great metrics with these, right? Of course, it's a little bit in your face, right? But that's also why usually we would recommend having like a click to scroll further down, but quite natively and intuitively, people will understand that they can scroll away from this. There's no X to close it, right? But it's very intuitively in there, and a really good performance unit, I would say. Yeah. We will see some comparisons a little bit later across the formats.
Yeah, what I like about this, you always can see the bottom of the page, right? So you always, the arrow pops up to the bottom, right? And you can always see the page. It's not like, you need to click X. Like you mentioned that it does not have X, but that's what I like about it. Like the user automatically just scrolls the page intuitively, and it's quite nice, right?
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, the CTR is off the charts with this one. Yeah. The next one is mid-scroll, right? So create a window effect. So in this case, you can see the Johnny Walker video, right? So the idea in mid-scroll compared, let's say, to top scroll, it's in the name, I think, right? So mid-scroll is in the middle of the content. Yeah. So if the top scroll, it appears at the top, the first thing you see at the page, the mid-scroll is a little bit in the middle. Yeah. So that's why comparing the two, let's see, in this attention economy, right? So mid-scroll, of course, will be less visible, right? It will have, of course, worse metrics compared to top scroll, but it's, like, let's say, the less intrusive, right? Because in this case, the user already scrolls the page, right? And he just, if he doesn't, he checks out the offer, he checks out the video, whatever is in the banner, right? He checks the animation. It's cool, I like it, and if he wants to continue, like he already been scrolling for some time now, right? So it's quite easy, and I'd say this is the least intrusive of all our scroll units, right? So yeah, that's the mid scroll. So yeah, and of course fluid skin, right? So in this case we have a background, right, and some sort of content on top of the background, right? So it always stays responsive. And the idea behind this ad, that it basically is behind the content of the page, right? So let's see, we have like this, this U shape, right? And yeah, that's where the content of the ad appears, and the content of the website is pushed to the middle of the page, right? So yeah, we have this nice, let's say, background effect for the overall website, which is, let's say, rich media ad. It can also be animated, things like that. So
yeah, and there's also different types of skins, right? So we also have seamless skin, which is this, right? So, and you can also break up the ad units into separate pieces, right? So you can tell a story, you can do a lot of crazy fun stuff here with video, with dynamic content, and as you said, rich media. And so a very interesting format. It's very country dependent on how it's usually news sites that enable this type of format, right? But it's a very fun piece, and it's usually also one that performs very well in terms of the awareness.
So yeah, the first thing you see, yeah. Sorry, Philip, which is your favorite out of all of these?
I like Top Scroll. I like them because they're right in your face, and I also know like how they perform, right? So I love that. I think there's a lot of creativity to be done here as well. So I like that. From a technical perspective, I think the fluid skins are also really cool. They're a little bit more harder to sell both to clients and for us, right? But overall, they're really interesting because you can do a lot of fun stuff and blend natively also in with the content. So
yeah. Thanks. If anyone has any preferences about these, or you like something, you can always write into the chat. It would be very nice to hear some feedback about the general view of these ads. Yeah.
Good. So maybe we go a little bit into the performance, right? Because that's also what people are interested in, right? It's very generic to say that this performs like this, but there's definitely some overall arching themes when it comes to the performance across these different ads, right? So maybe we can take some examples and also some comparisons. But let's first go again. We love to verify and have valid numbers to support our claims, right? So maybe Jeff, you can go to the next page so we can see some of these, right? So the benefits of them, of course, like the attention play, as we said, right? So that is very important, one of the most important parts of this. But there also is that you can encourage interaction. So just like our rich media offerings, you can build in a lot of interaction with these, and it encourages people to play around with this. So as you said, the numbers we saw, increasing brand recall, and again, high viewability from most of these are off the charts, right? So you leave a lasting impression. And again, the innovation of these could be very, very, very big. So lots of great benefits with the high impact ads, I would say. So maybe we have some numbers to support our claims as well here.
Yeah.
So yeah, so these are some of the numbers we get from Adjust and Lumen and Insider Intelligence, some of the later research on this in terms of like the creatives, right? So that 70% of advertising effectiveness actually comes from the creative itself. It doesn't come from the placement. It doesn't come from the amount of reach. It actually comes from the creative itself, which makes sense, right? You have all seen the good Google ads, text ads, right? They look horrible. Those would not fit into a FMCG brand's perspective, right? But when it comes to creatives, we all pretty much, when we're working with an advertising or programmatic, we know when an ad is bad or good, well designed, well executed, the content within the design, right? So I think that's a very clear indicator that this has to be a top priority for brands and for agencies when working with advertising. So yes, and placements, maybe you could take that, Chef.
Yeah. So the idea here is that the placement matters quite a bit. We previously mentioned 6,000 to 10,000 daily ads are seen, right? So that's quite a lot, right? So the user usually gets lost in all of the sea of ads, and it just pushes everything back naturally, right? That's our human mentality, right? And whenever you visit a website and you see something, let's say like top scroll, right, with a nice animation, the content is fresh, right? So all of these things combined, right? Of course, it will leave a very, very like lasting impression in general, right? As Philip mentioned, right? And the idea is that it will be viewable a lot more, right? Most of the formats we present, let's say floating ad, top scroll, right? So they're in the best placement possible, right? In the first thing you see on the page, right? So the viewability is quite good, right? Compared to, let's say, regular 350 and other different ads which get lost. Yeah.
Yeah, and that also turns into size, right? Because a lot of the formats we just showed have a higher pixel size than the rest, right? So if you look at the top scroll, it takes over 2/3, 3/4 of the screen, right? So even organically or natively built, right, it's designed to demand attention, right? So the statistics say that if the larger the ad unit, like the bigger the attention span is, right? So or attention is. So I think some of these they correlate quite nicely.
Yeah, so we already see like the regular placements, let's say simple rich media ads outperform static ads, of course, right? So imagine like we take the whole success of the rich media animations, we take interaction animation in general to the format like top scroll, right? Added into this huge size, right? In general, the users will be quite inclined to look at it, right? Yeah, this is what I was talking about, right? So high impact versus standard, right? So 45 times more attention compared to standard display ads, right? So that's quite a bit.
Yeah, we don't have the stats with us, but I've also seen we've run some campaigns in some countries, some split tests where comparing standard versus high impact, we saw 1,000% increase in viewability. We saw like 15,000 increase in CTR, right? So there's a lot of benefits to some of these formats that just blew my mind, right? And that this was looking at millions of impressions. So there's some good formats here. So when we come to performance branding, right? So when we talk about some of these impact formats, right, they're also more likely to encourage a consumer to discover more about your brand, right? So just the format itself, the content, the quality, just correlates much more with purchase intent. So and more discoverability for a brand. So highly impactful formats also in terms of brand recall, equity, and all of these areas combined. So that, of course, has some correlation between not only the high impact ad, but also because there usually is more focus on the content, the rich media inside, the content inside, besides the ad unit itself, right? But again, those things correlate very nicely. So yes, I think we have one more of these, and then we actually have a really cool comparison sheet. So these are some really cool investigations by a Danish company called Adnami. They've done some attention investigation across a lot of different channels, right? And you see the top scroll is outperforming even TV and YouTube and Instagram and all these social parts in terms of attentive second per thousand impressions, right? So there is a high correlation with this as well, and there is a lot of research being shown that this is the new format if you want to compete against TV with programmatic. So I think this is a really cool chart.
Yeah.
Yes. So again, between awareness, brand recall, and attention is attention, right? So this is both a way for us to get a lot of awareness, but also a way to measure performance. So it's 7 times more effective than viewability at predicting awareness. So there is just a lot of benefits to this that have been proven across the world. So I think attention will become one of the newest ways of measuring results in the future when it comes to programmatic. I think there's a lot more correlation, a lot more research being pulled into this by big biometric companies and Lumen, and a lot of the research companies are taking up more and more this, because if we go back to the initial statement and the research is that we're exposed to 6,000 to 10,000 ads every day. We need to stand out. We need to up the quality, and we need to up the amount of time and effort we put into creating these formats and being very mindful of how they are viewed and how they are being received, right? So that is some of the future, I would say, here. So maybe we can go to some really cool graphic or some things to be aware of. Sorry. Jeff has some things. Of course, not everything is free. There is, of course, some downsides.
Right? So let me get into those, right? So so the first one is it's very easy to go, let's say, nuts with these ads, right? So they might be very resource intensive, right? So whenever, in my own experience, the client sees that, we have this big frame, so okay, let's put the highest quality videos, right? And we have, let's say, ads weighting, like the overall weight of the ad is like 20 megabytes, right? So that's, of course, not normal, right? So it's very easy to go with the amazing assets, right? So huge lines of code for the animation, which will ruin the third part, the user experience in general, right? The ads are mostly, these formats are mostly intrusive on their own, right? And then imagine if the loading times are very high, right? It doesn't appear when it has to appear. So this is very, very, very important whenever running these, let's say, bigger formats, right? So what we usually do is we optimize the code as much as possible, right? So it will only weigh 20, 30 kilobytes per ad, right? And then we optimize all of the assets, right? So so that's very important for the loading speed, especially in the countries where the internet is a little bit slower, right? So we cannot overload the user with this 20, 30 megabytes ad, right? So usually right now I'd say it's reachable to 200, from 200 to 500 kilobytes per ad, right? And local publisher placements, so that's the third issue, I'd say. So we don't really have, let's say, the OpenRTB traffic in this case, right? So it's run on local publisher websites. So for now, the OpenRTB does not offer these sizes and these formats in general, right? So each country, let's say, has to have their own agreement, right? We cannot just go like this. Right? Well, of course, we can go like this, but it will take a little bit longer than, let's say, OpenRTB ads in general. The comparisons.
Yeah, I love comparisons. So this is used for me to instantly get an overview, of course, the pros and cons of the different formats, right? So we start with the standard display. You all know them. Then we also have a rich media display, of course, same ad unit size, right? But of course, the content within is more custom, interactive, etc. And then we have some of these top scroll, mid scroll, floating ad, fluid skins, and full page takeover. So when we look from the attention perspective, of course, the standard display ads are the worst. Like they don't demand that attention at all. Even if you make it bright pink, it's still boring. It still doesn't bring out the attention that you would like, right? So if you look at all the comparisons, you can see how they interact, right? So CTR is worse as well. Intrusiveness is, of course, not that big of a thing. But usually you would also see maybe 30 or 40 of these ads on a single page, right? So they're also a bit forgetful, right? And they're not intrusive because there are so many of them that you don't even notice. And of course, the CPM for these is very good because they're a dime a dozen. You can run them everywhere, right? So, and the inventory as well is the same, right? So you can see that the benefits from the standard rich media and the rich media display is that the attention is not as high, the CTR is not as high. They're very intrusive. There's a lot of inventory, and the CPMs are lower, right? And if you move more to the right, you will see that the performance metrics, the attention metrics, they are very high on high impact ads. The intrusiveness level, the CPM, and the inventory is, of course, also that way. So that makes those the barrier to entry higher than a standard campaign. But if you're really interested in getting a lot of attention, the attention cost is lower still than the standard display and rich media ads. So there's pros and cons towards everything, right? So I think that's very important we note, right? This is not the golden ticket to paradise. There are limits, but again, working with publishers, we do that in many countries, is that custom agreements and all these things is very important for us to make this work. So we will be sharing this afterwards, and of course, make sure to give comments if there's anything. So yeah, I think we're running a little bit behind schedule, so maybe we can just quickly comment on this. I don't know if you want to take it, Jeff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so this is the floating ad. So in this case, this is a Naivas case study. So we have run this campaign in Kenya, right? So this was back to school campaign on local publishers in Kenya, right? So yeah, we have some cool feedback from the client, but yeah, let's maybe jump into the stats, right? So in this case, we had 83% viewability, right? So in this case, it depends on, let's say, users loading the site, users quitting the site prematurely, and things like that, right? So yeah, so that's, I would call this on a lower end, right, for floating ads. Yeah, but yeah, it's still, let's say, 83 viewability is massive, right? So like 83, that's a lot, right? Yeah, the CTR was always also off the charts, right? So usually on floating ads, whenever we don't have the transition, let's say, to the full screen takeover or any other dimensions, right? We have if it's instant, like it's the first thing you see, we usually have a lot of CTR. So I'd say it's from 3% to 8% in Eskimi. Yeah, engagement rate. So like it looks like you automatically only can click the ad, but in this case, users can drag the ad around, right? And yeah, we calculate that as engagement. So basically, the user has interacted with the ad and dragged it around the screen. Yeah. So yeah, maybe let me take this one, right? So what I suggest, let's say, so it wouldn't be like the only strategy for me is to run standard ads, or the only strategy for me would be to run high impact ads, right? So what I always suggest to my clients, right? So the idea is to have it both ways, right? So that's a perfect, let's say, mix of reach, and basically getting the most attention with high impact, standing out and in the market and things like that, right? So yeah, how it usually works, let's say we create this rich media, right? So in this case, you see this cool betting plane ad, right? So in this case, it's so in this case, you can place a bet, right? I think a lot of people know this game, and you can cash out whenever, right? And whenever we run this campaign, let's say on Open and RTB, we also bought traffic for takeover and top scroll in the same market, right? So basically, whenever the user sees the ad on OpenRTB, he can interact. And then he sees the takeover on the local publishers, he can also interact and basically play this addicting game in my eyes. Yeah. Creation process in Eskimi in general, right? So how we usually work is we help agencies create the concept, right? So basically we can brainstorm together, or you can leave that to us completely. Then we create a design, right? Usually brands already have, let's say, approved design for the campaign. Then we can push that in, let's say, concept stage, right? And then, design stage falls off, right? So we can think about, let's say, this. We have like, 3 objects, so they will move like this will change that, and things like that, right? Then we do the development, so basically all of the optimization, all of the coding, we do that in-house, right? And then data, so basically gathering all of the data, engagement, time in view, attention, viewability, all that, right? So we include everything into the ad, and then we can safely launch the campaign with our, let's say, new solution in this case, right? Yeah, and then the team that we currently have, right? So as we work in the creative studio, right, we have creative strategists, innovation engineers, the guys who usually help you brainstorm, right, come up with new ideas. Then we have designers and developers, right? So I think this one is self-explanatory. So developers are responsible for JavaScript, writing the code, doing integrations, APIs, things like that. And designers are the ones who usually do the graphics, of course, right? And then production specialists are the people who bring the overall idea and connect all of the dots from the, let's say, creative strategy perspective with the designers and developers.
Yeah, and we have 6 open positions. So please, everyone, go in and apply, or send out your colleagues if you're hiring. So, or if you're looking to help someone out, we have 6 open positions in this team. So really good to see the traction on this, and we're able to help a lot of our customers from 0 to 100. So yes.
Yeah, thank you, Philip, for the
a little pitch. I'm just trying to help you, right? So I think that's always good. So yes, maybe we should go to the Q&A and the questions we've received. I think there's a lot, right? So again, if people have short on time, we will be sending out the recording afterwards, both to those who participated and those who didn't. But let's go through the Q&A. We have time for that. So let's start from both the chat questions and the questions. So we can start from the top. So Sergey answered the question himself, so that is awesome. Good initiative, Sergey. So Ahmed asked, what is the best moment to use these top ads? Is it suitable for awareness or clicks?
Yeah, can I take this one? Yeah, so I think both, right? So it receives huge chunks of awareness, as this is the topic about attention, right? We're talking about, let's say, general performance of the ads, right? So we can also make them as easy as possible to, let's say, click, interact, so it would, let's say, it wouldn't have, let's say, 5 stages of, we had this case of washing a car, right? So the user had to click 5 times to basically complete the process. Of course, it will not have, like, let's say, huge CTR, right? So, but whenever the ad appears on top, floating ad takes over the screen, like it's the first thing the user sees, and usually the clicks are, I think, a lot higher, right? So as a floating ad case study, I think it was 6%, right? Which we showed even more. So yeah, yes, to answer your question, both.
Yeah. And Gibson asked, are the top and mid-scroll ads static images or video?
Yeah, so I'd say video, static, and let's say animated rich media, right? On interactable rich media. So like, for you to imagine, right? It's the same. Let's say we have a 300 onto 50, simple square ad, right? We can animate, we can do the interactions, we can do a lot of these things, right? So imagine this top scroll is a huge placement, right? It just has, let's say, the different, not an OpenRTB one, but it's a huge placement where we can animate. It's a new canvas for us, right? Where we can draw, animate, place videos, go nuts, right?
Yeah, and it's the same for, we have Kamal asking if it's the same for fluid skins.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Gibson has a very good question again. Like, do we also have bottom scroll? So how would that work?
Bottom scroll. Yeah. So what are we currently working on is double scroll. So it rhymes the same. Yeah. So the idea is we have, like, let's say this mini top scroll at the top. The user scrolls and then he sees similar content, but in the mid scroll fashion. Yeah. So it's a huge chunk, right? Which the user scrolls. Like, he gets the intro and he receives the mid scroll. But yeah, bottom scroll, I think it's an excellent idea. Yeah, and we should definitely
explore that. It's on the roadmap. Good suggestion.
Yeah.
Good. Then we also have Nikunj asking, what are the best ad formats to promote the content of OTT? So it's a little bit outside the scope here, but let's answer what we can here. So what we have, if you have any data on this or just a preferential thing, we can also get back to Nikunj afterwards.
Sorry, the question was what are the best ad formats to promote content on OTT?
OTT, yeah.
Yeah, so I think let's maybe get back about this.
Yeah, I don't think I have the data on hand. Yeah.
Yeah, Nikunj, if you could maybe let's get in touch.
I'll find Nikunj. I have my ways.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
So we have an Mbabasi asking which of these high impacts is the most impactful, right? So that's a loaded question. In these, it depends on the use case, is what I would say. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. And I think Jeff also mentioned that using a combination of OpenRTB and high impacts and maybe even social media is probably the best way. So how do we put that into the mix? So I would put it into a mix. Again, you're not limited to one high impact ad format per campaign, right? So you could run several. So I think that depends on if you're very much interested in high viewability and attention, right? The top, like the overlay is like there's no way around it, right? So that would be for that impact. But again, we will be sharing the slides so you can actually see some of the pros and cons of the different formats afterwards.
But maybe from my end, I think maybe top scroll takeover would be the highest. Yeah, to be honest with the audience, at least that's what I think. Like they're visible right off the bat, right? Like you said, in your face. Yeah. So
let's see. We have again fluid skin interactive. Yes, they can be everything. So maybe going to the questions bar again. Sergey, which channels and ad formats are the most performing for B2B product marketing at the moment? That's also very big loaded questions. If I knew that, I would probably not be sitting here. I would be out going all based on those channels. It's a very loaded question, right?
Yeah, so maybe
for us,
answer that. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the effective size, let's say for a floating format, right? So since we try to make it not intrusive, right, and look basically not spammy, as I call it, right? So it has to be very nice, fit well into the content in general, somewhere in the bottom, right? So I think the overall size, like, it would be 300 on 300, like tops. Yeah, that's a big one. But yeah, tops, that would be that. But yeah, like depends on the campaign, what kind of assets you have. Sometimes it does not fit, right? So yeah.
Good. I think we have some questions a little bit about sizes, effective size for floating ad formats to promote ice cream. So do we have any standards for floating ads that make sense?
Sorry, apologies. I probably just answered this one. But yeah, as I mentioned previously, so 300 on 300 is the best one, right? But yeah, that's the max I would go.
Yeah. Good. Let's see. So we have a very good question from Tanmay. How is your platform different from Google AI solution creative, like pricing metrics? That is going to be a longer answer than we have time for here, Tanmay, but I'll promise we'll follow up on it afterwards. We'll probably have someone in your market. It's very dependent on market as well. So we'll have someone reach out afterwards, if that's okay.
Yeah, so on the pricing, maybe I can comment a little bit for the creatives in general, right? So we don't really charge for the creatives, right? It's usually included in the, let's say, media spend, right? So the creative development usually, in most cases, comes free to our clients. So just to
definitely. It is, because it is a lot of work, right? It's not just plug and play. There is a lot of, we have front-end developers, back-end developers, right? It's very custom when we do a lot of these high impact formats. So, but usually it's part of our packaging and normal pricing that you have access to Jeff and his team, and that's one of the pros of working with us versus with this Google Ads, right? So a little bit more high service than DV360. And again, as I said in the beginning, the customer support, our full service, full stack, like it's not necessarily only a self-service platform. We also do fully managed platform. So you have two options: either you do it yourself, or we do it for you. So that depends on the pricing here. So yes, let's see. I can see one more question being loaded. Maybe we can take that as the last one, and then we'll let people go on their way for lunch or for a walk or for actually launching some really cool campaigns.
No, yeah, please.
Good. No, I think that's it. Super. Thanks for the time, Jeff. Thanks everyone for participating. As I said, we'll send over the slides afterwards, or at least the presentation. Technically, that's done. So thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate the time you took. And yeah, if you want to know more about high impact ads, feel free to reach out to both Jeff and I on LinkedIn, or if you can find my email address or Jeff's, maybe we'll put that into the comments afterwards. Mine should be easy to find, but otherwise feel free to connect. We're happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Perfect. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Nice one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.